Another unarmed black teenager is shot. Another armed man who shot him claims self-defense. It's an amazing and ridiculous story. For more on this, we bring in Anna Kasparian.
Cenk, this is a devastating story, and a lot of people are reminded of the Trayvon Martin case when it comes to this story. 17-year-old Jordan Davis was fatally shot to death by 45-year-old Michael Dunn. First Coast News has more on this story. Let's take a look.
Police say Davis and his friends had left the town center on Black Friday and around 7:40 stopped at the Gate gas station at Southside and Bay Meadows. He was in the back seat of a red SUV with his friends, and police say the man parked next to them got into a confrontation with them over their loud music. Police say Dunn fired 8 or 9 shots at the SUV, striking Davis several times before driving off.
Striking him several times. No one in the vehicle was armed, and understandably, Lucia McBath, Davis's mother, is devastated by this story. Let's hear what she has to say.
It doesn't matter. You shot him over some music, and he was in the car, and there's no logical reason, there's nothing logical that you can say that would make me believe that you were threatened.
Heartbreaking. I want to, bring our guests into this conversation. Lisa Bloom is a legal analyst with Avo.com. Cenk Uygur, and who's not a guest, who's the host of the show.
That's all right now. I'm right here.
And also, of course, Tricia Rose, who is a professor for Brown University. Now, I want to start with you, Lisa. What are your thoughts on this story? I mean, is this a hate crime? Is there a real defense in this story? I mean, was there a real threat?
Well, we know that the defense is going to assert stand your ground, and we know that stand your ground is a disaster in American law. It's resulted in unprecedented numbers of deaths and an unprecedented amount of injustice in this country, as this story indicates. There is no attack here. There was no reason for self-defense. This man was able to drive away after the crime. He could have driven away instead of committing this crime, but the stand your ground law may be interpreted to exonerate him. How appalling is that?
It is appalling, and the lawyer for Michael Dunn has already done an interview, and he talks about, or she talks about how there was a possible threat. So let's hear what she has to say, because I think her quote here is very, very questionable.
Kill that mother, dead, you dead. And he sees that much of a shotgun coming up over the rim of the SUV, which is up higher than his Jetta. And it's all he sees are heavily tinted front windows that are up and the back windows that are down, and the car has at least 4 black men in it. And he doesn't know how old anybody is, he doesn't know anything, but he knows a shotgun when he sees one.
They did not find a shotgun in the vehicle, the fact that she had to mention that there were 4 black men in the vehicle, I think, is very questionable. Tricia, what do you have to say about, the lawyer's remarks in that video?
Well, I think it's very interesting. Imagine if it was a town car with tinted windows and a corporate leader in the back. Everything until the black boys would have told a different story. But when you take for granted the way in which African American men are both targeted and feared and vilified as a group, when you take that for granted, you're unable to really assess the true danger that not just stand your ground laws, but the general legal and criminal apparatus that surrounds young black men and what they face. And that's what we really have to take into account. I can't speak at this point to this particular gentleman who shot this poor boy, Jordan Davis, and I can't speak to the specifics of what happened, but I can guarantee that the broader context of how race shapes perception has to be playing a role, because it plays a role all the time.
And Anna, can I say one other thing?
Sure.
We know that gun homicides are at epidemic levels in the U.S. today, about 30,000 a year, according to the CDC. The one group most likely to be gunshot victims is African American males, especially young African American males, far more likely to be the victim than a perpetrator in gun crimes.
So let me jump in here on a couple of points. First of all, when they say, oh, well, there's 4 black guys in the car, can you imagine if the roles were reversed and a black guy had shot a white kid, a 17-year-old kid, And the defense lawyer came out and said, well, what was he supposed to do? There was 4 white kids in the car. Obviously, since he's a black guy, of course he was going to shoot the 4 white kids. The country would be on fire, right? They would be like, oh my God, look at this. Black people are so dangerous, you're just shooting random white people. And by the way, this whole stereotype of blacks being dangerous and violent that we've been living with for hundreds of years. Now, remind me which race went to somebody else's home, kidnapped them, put them in chains, and violently kept them enslaved. Violently. I want people to understand that. And white people get so mad when you bring this up. They're like, how dare you bring it up? No.
You know, Cenk, this is...
Go ahead, Tricia.
Right. No, Cenk, I really appreciate what you're saying there. And that's the other thing, is that, you know, African Americans have so much suffering and pain about the way they've been treated, not just in the past, but in the present. There's a ton of fear that African Americans have. And that's why cases like this are so galvanizing, because the constant way in which people walk around with the realization that so much discrimination is normalized and unaddressed, it really builds up, and people feel that this is the smoking gun now that they're looking for to prove it. And the history you describe is a critical part of that context.
And we know that racial bias permeates the criminal justice system, especially in the application of stand your ground laws. And I have all of these facts and studies on my blog on avo.com today, that African American men who shoot a white victim, something like 38% of those are found to be not justified, you know, at a far higher level than whites who commit crimes against African Americans. It happens in this particular instance on Stand Your Ground, and it happens across the board.
Just to give you some numbers on Stand Your Ground, it's been horrible, especially for states like Florida. I mean, if you look at the statistics, nearly 70% of Florida cases that used Stand Your Ground defense went free. You know, and it's kind of incredible that after the whole controversy surrounding Trayvon Martin, there was absolutely nothing done to reform the law there. Nobody even really discussed it. We're too afraid to talk about reforming, you know, gun control. And it's a real issue. I mean, there are countless victims, and how many stories are we going to do until something actually gets done?
And the laws don't make us safer. It's time to get over the opinion and start looking at the facts on Stand Your Ground laws, because we know a lot about how they work and how they don't work. The majority of people who use Stand Your Ground as a defense are criminals, are people with a criminal record. In fact, people with a history of a gun crime in their background. We're not talking about law-abiding citizens defending their own home. Crime rates have not gone down in Stand Your Ground states. They're completely ineffective. The one thing that we do know is that more people are going to die and fewer people will be brought to justice for it.
Those are great points, actually, Lisa. All right, Lisa, Tricia, Anna, thank you so much. I just got to say one last thing about this case. Okay, first of all, defense lawyer is horrible. When they said they found no shotgun in the car, as her defendant claims, she's like, maybe they didn't look hard enough. Okay, but look, the thing about the stereotypes drives me crazy, because you know what they immediately did in the news stories? They said, oh, the kid was not in a gang. Why is there an assumption that the black kid is in a gang? Why? When a 17-year-old white kid gets shot, is there an assumption? Do they write in the news stories, well, the white kid was not in a gang? It's like the thing is, oh, well, of course, it must have been the black person who was violent. But no, it was the black person who got shot and killed, okay? And look, when I talk about slavery, I'm not saying you did it. Like, white people react sometimes like, oh my God, but it wasn't me. Of course it wasn't you. But look at the ramifications when you still have that stereotype against black people today. Not 200 years ago, not 400 years ago, but today. And then they go and shoot them, and they say there's 4 black people in the car. Well, of course the guy was going to shoot.
Thank you.
All right, so as you can tell, I'm a little mad about that. Now, when we come back, we'll lighten it up a little bit. There's a huge Powerball thing, and we'll talk about what we would do if we won.